Hello, and welcome to another episode of Chat2Me. This is Nadira Norjahan, and today's episode is an interview with the most beautiful Mam Yassin Sarr of the Gambia. We will talk about her life in the Gambia and the Starfish International education program. Our meeting was at a restaurant called Copa in St. Petersburg, Florida, that does not disappoint, with yummy Afro-Latin-Caribbean fusion, beautiful ambiance, and superior customer service. Do stop by if you are ever in the Tampa Bay area. Now, let's get into the chat.
So part of my work has always been centered around young people and activism. I talked about female circumcision. So years ago, I was part of a group of students in the Gambia that did interviews with Alice Walker of Color Purple in her hood because Alex Haley traced his roots to Kinte Kunda, and Kinte is a Gambian last name. So Jufure, where Kunta Kinte is from, is in the Gambia.
Chat.
Welcome to Starfish, where dreams are nurtured, hope is ignited, and lives are transformed. Our dream is a simple one. Our dream is to empower women and girls so that no family feels helpless.
Welcome to Starfish. Many years ago, Auntie Yassin had a vision to create a program that would change lives and bring hope to our communities.
Hi, my name is Harife. I am one of the girls whose life has been touched by Starfish International. This program has given me the opportunity to learn, grow, and dream big by teaching me life skills such as photography and small business.
Starfish International has come a long way since its inception. We've grown, evolved, and adapted to meet the needs of our students. Our commitment to education and empowerment remains steadfast.
Here at Starfish, we understand the importance of preserving our environment. Our land is not only a safe haven, but it also contributes to the Gambia's ecosystem, fostering a harmonious relationship between education and nature.
Our health program has been instrumental in transforming the lives of our students through mobile clinics and healthcare guidance. We have inspired young minds to pursue careers as doctors and nurses to bring high-quality healthcare in our community.
Welcome to the heart of Starfish. Our library provides knowledge, our spa promotes well-being, our restaurant nourishes bodies, our hall brings people together, and our skills center equips students with valuable skills for a brighter future.
Starfish is not just about buildings and programs. It's about empowering girls, providing them with a quality education, and helping them realize their full potential.
Starfish is a testament to the power of dreams, the strength of community, and the transformative impact of education. And together we can create a brighter future for all women and girls, their families, their communities, and the world at large.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Chat2Me Presents. I am here with my sister, Mam. I want to say, I call her Yassin, as her name is, but I want to say her entire name properly. Mam
Yes, Ma'am.
Yassin Sarr.
Yeah.
Yes, and she is from the tribe of Sarr,
Yes.
from the Gambia. Yes. Her childhood high school was St. Peter's and St. Augustine's in the Gambia. She has an undergrad in sociology and French from Berean College. Her master's is in English from Murray State University. And then her advanced degree is in teaching and curriculum from Syracuse University. She is currently a co-founder of Starfish International. Take that one over. She is currently co-founder and managing director of Starfish International Girls Education Program for the last 15 years. She is also a public speaker. You gotta pay that money for it. And she's also a poet and a writer who will be published sometime very soon. Thank you, Yassin, for being willing to talk to me about your beautiful self.
It's my pleasure.
So, Yassin, please tell me about something about your foundation. Tell me about the Gambia.
So the Gambia is the smallest country in Africa, in mainland Africa. And it was colonized by the British. And the British needed 250 miles from the Atlantic Ocean inland to transport slaves out. So I think the Gambia internationally originally was known because Alex Haley traced his roots to Kinte Kunda, and Kinte is a Gambian last name. So Jufure, where Kunta Kinte is from, is in the Gambia. So that's a famous Gambian connection. And we're also known as the Smile of Africa.
Hey, I believe that. I believe
so
that.
That's very friendly people. It's a small country. It's very peace-loving. And that's where I grew up. And I think for the purposes of our conversation, you'll find out that the girls' education program I went on to co-found with my husband, there is a very interesting take to it, which is because our biggest industry is tourism, we're very used to development being done on us. And we wanted to flip that and look at how the indigenous people can take charge of their own development instead of development being done on them. But I grew up near rivers and near the Atlantic Ocean. So there's a river that runs through the country and an ocean there. And just fun-loving, friendly, generous people. Also courageous in that even though we're the tiniest country on mainland Africa, you will meet Gambians all over the world doing some pretty amazing things. So it's an exciting place to be in, exciting place to grow up in. And I think that courage to say no matter how small my voice may be, I'm still going to be heard is what has informed my journey thus far. So we have a lot to share.
Awesome, awesome. So, tell me a little bit about your travels. How did you wind up coming to the United States? Is it to just study, just because of study, or?
Yes, I always wanted to stay in Africa. I I didn't really have any dreams of studying abroad, and especially not in the United States. But I always felt like if I went abroad, it would be Canada instead of the US. I thought that the US had a lot of violence from my vantage point, and I wanted to avoid that. However, I applied when I was in high school. One of my high school teachers found a college in Kentucky. And in that college, students that come from families that would not be able to pay for college get accepted to that school, and then you have to go back to your community and make a difference as a payback for getting tuition-free education.
Is this Berean?
That is Berea in Kentucky. So I applied. He encouraged me to apply. I applied, I got accepted, and so I had to leave the Gambia to come to the U.S., to Kentucky, to get a college education. So that's what brought me out of the Gambia.
Wonderful. Oh, well, I'm glad that you wound up here, because I would not have been able to meet you otherwise. Or who knows? You know, I think maybe our alignment would have been.
We would have met.
Yes, we would have met. So, why did you select teaching as your advanced degree?
I actually came to the U.S. to study law.
Oh.
Yes, I always wanted to study law. I interned as a lawyer after high school, during high school. And then when I got to the U.S., I realized when I studied sociology as my undergrad, I realized that as a very impatient person, the fastest place where I could see the most effective change, I felt like, was in education. Because education is the only place where somebody can open their minds completely to you. And that a teacher can do something that impacts the child for the rest of their lives. And so since I wanted to see change and see it now and have it be sustainable, I felt like the best place to effect that change and the fastest place to effect that change was to have a critical mass of people that think in a particular way to bring that change about and maintain it. So I changed from law to education.
Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. So tell me, what was it like as a child in the Gambia? What was it like? Were you working a lot, or what type of things? Because my experience in Ghana, a lot of the children work early, and they have a lot of responsibility. So, what was your experience in the Gambia?
The Gambia, it was twofold. So I grew up, my mom was the first girl in her village to go to high school. And my dad also worked as a civil servant. So early on in my life, and my mom was an only child, so she didn't have to share her resources. There wasn't limited resources for her. So I actually grew up between my first year and 8th year, very privileged, surrounded by my siblings, my 2 brothers, my grandparents were there. And then when I was 8 years old, my parents went through a very, very difficult divorce. So I went from having everything I needed, including a car dropping me off at school and picking me up and going to get ice cream on the way home, all of those perks, to my mom leaving the house with just the clothes on her back and losing custody of her kids. And so I went from having everything to feeling like I had nothing. So that was a big shift in my childhood. But within 4 years, I watched my mom. So between when I was in 2nd grade and when I was in 6th grade, I watched my mom go from sleeping on people's couches to getting a job, getting her own apartment, regaining custody of her kids. And so it kind of gave me the blueprint of how powerful education can be in giving girls choices and how they can go on to impact both their male children and their female children. Wow. So I guess I grew up very early on as an activist and a gender activist specifically.
Oh, I love this. I love this because this is part of what Chat2Me heralds. I love to focus on the upliftment of women in the world, because you know, we need to be seen, we need to be part of the narrative, the entire global narrative. So tell me about Starfish International Girls Education Program. Wow, wow, wow. And thank you very much for the cashews. They were delicious. I bought some cashews that the girls had produced, and my goodness, they were the best thing ever. So tell me about this, how this came about, and tell me about what's going on with this.
Yeah. So when I was 8, that night that my mom left the house, I remember leaving with her and saying, you know, if my mom is leaving, I'm going to leave as well. And she left. Basically, a series of events led to her refusing to have me go through female circumcision and refusing to stay in a marriage where my dad was polygamous. So if you looked at her life, you would see that there were certain things that were happening in society to women and women's bodies and women's lives that she disagreed with. And because of that, she was fought, and because of that, she lost her marriage. And I remember that night saying, well, if my mom is leaving, I'm leaving with her as well. And walking down the street, and it was really dark, and I was really scared, and making that commitment to myself that when I grow up, I'm going to do something so that no girl feels as afraid as I feel right now. And no woman feels as helpless as my mom must be feeling right now, leaving her other children behind. So about 25 years later, I went back to that exact same spot where I made that decision.
Wow.
After I had gone to college and finished everything and got married, I went back to that same spot, that same property, and started a girls' education program there. That was 15 years ago, following that blueprint of my mom, that even though she seemingly lost everything, because she had an education, she could make choices. She had choices.
Yeah.
And because she had choice, she could dream for us even before we could dream for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so because my mom had an education, she could get a job. I felt like the girls could start their own small businesses early on and generate money, and that gives them a financial voice in addition to just their educational voice. But David, my husband and co-founder of the organization, and I were not interested in empowering humans who would then just be very entitled and think of just themselves. And we were also not interested in producing human beings or helping human beings who felt like they were charity cases. We wanted them to feel empowered and to also feel like they earned what they were getting. And so part of the requirement for the program, if you get accepted into it, is that you will go back and give back to your community. So even while you are in the program as a student, you have to identify a problem within your community that you can solve and do something to solve it. So if you are in an area, for example, where the streets, the rains always spoil the streets, and you're a 13-year-old, you can get together with your friends and fill bags with sand and put it across the street so it stops the other sand that would be eroded. And so your road is better. If you live in a neighborhood where there's teenage pregnancy and you're going to school, you can learn about abstinence and preventative methods, and then come and do a youth group within your community. If you are in an area where the children, their parents have not gone to school and can't help them with homework, and you're 11 years old, you can still teach the first graders and second graders, and that's your payback, and you're earning your scholarship. So you leave your school not feeling like you owe anybody anything or are beholden to anybody, but it also makes service a habit of the heart, so that by the time you become a doctor or a lawyer or whatever you want to be, you grew up serving, and you grew up giving back, and you grew up thinking not only of yourself but your community. So in essence, that's Starfish International. It's looking at boys and girls, but especially disadvantaged girls, and seeing all that they bring to the table and helping them become servant leaders, even as they're helping themselves.
Okay. Why did you select teaching as your advanced degree?
I actually came to the U.S. to study law.
Oh.
Yes, I always wanted to study law. I interned as a lawyer after high school, during high school. And then when I got to the U.S., I realized when I studied sociology as my undergrad, I realized that as a very impatient person, the fastest place where I could see the most effective change I felt like was in education. Because education is the only place where somebody can open their minds completely to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that a teacher can do something that impacts the child for the rest of their lives. And so since I wanted to see change and see it now and have it be sustainable, I felt like the best place to effect that change and the fastest place to effect that change was to have a critical mass of people that think in a particular way to bring that change about and maintain it. So I changed from law to education.
Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. So tell me, what was it like as a child in the Gambia? What was it like? Were you working a lot, or what type of things? Because my experience in Ghana, a lot of the children work early, and they have a lot of responsibility. So, what was your experience in the Gambia?
The Gambia, it was twofold. So I grew up, my mom was the first girl in her village to go to high school. And my dad also worked as a civil servant. So early on in my life, and my mom was an only child, so she didn't have to share her resources. There wasn't limited resources for her. So I actually grew up between my first year and 8th year, very privileged, surrounded by my siblings, my 2 brothers, my grandparents were there. And then when I was 8 years old, my parents went through a very, very difficult divorce. So I went from having everything I needed, including a car dropping me off at school and picking me up and going to get ice cream on the way home, all of those perks, to my mom leaving the house with just the clothes on her back and losing custody of her kids. And so I went from having everything to feeling like I had nothing.
So what are the challenges that you have at the school? Are there because I'm sure that you have children who are resistant to instruction, and then you have some who really gravitate to instruction, or tell me about some of the challenges that you face.
Yeah, so it's an after-school program on steroids. So the kids go to regular school and then they come to us after school. And it has 3 portions: education, health, and agriculture. We feel like a hungry child cannot learn and a sick child cannot learn. So we're trying to take care of their education, health, and agriculture. At the same time, how they can take care of that for the community as well. So when a kid comes into and I guess the big advantage is that the 30 staff that run it all were kids in the program that have come back to run the program. So I'm the managing director, not the executive director, because the present executive director just finished her master's and came back, and she was a 13-year-old kid in the program.
Hey, wow.
So David and I have the bounty of living long enough to see the target population actually own the program. So we've always been working ourselves out of a job, and we wanted this to be a model not just for the Gambia but for Africa, that people in their 50s can let people in their 20s and 30s run whole programs and be on the sideline advising them and supporting them and accompanying them. So in essence, I think the problems that come with that, the advantage is that everybody that's there wants to be there. They understand that this is an invaluable opportunity, And they can see the change because everybody running it was in their position before and is now mentoring them. However, it's a different model because we don't want to depend. We want to be independent. We want to do what we can where we are with what we have. And because we're situated in Africa, I think a lot of grant programs are set up in a way to come in and tell you what to do. And we reject that model. So in essence, what we say is vet the program, look at what these kids are doing and how they're doing it. And if you trust in it, then if you have resources, give it to them and get out of their way so they can do their work. Which is a very different model from please come and help us. And we also believe that Africa has a lot to offer and that in service you actually gain more than you're giving.
Absolutely.
So when you come, the target population that you might feel like I'm going to go help those people or save those people are actually helping you and allowing you the bounty of accompanying them. So that's not a model that is very sexy for grant tours. Right?
And it's not, it's definitely not what we've known to be the norm for the past 100 years, where it's like, oh, Africa is just so, they cannot do for themselves. We must go and, we must rescue them. Where, this, I love that this, that your program teaches that, hey, we can help ourselves.
This is an investment.
You know? Yes,
you want
this
to
is
come
an
in,
investment.
you're investing, and the returns are going to be greater than what you invested. And you can see the work being done, and you can join the work as it is being done. But don't get it twisted that you are saving anybody in the process. So because of that, people are not calling us into rooms that we are not in because we don't fit the stereotype of, you know, oh, this is who wants to be saved. So, and then that's one thing. The second thing is it's all run by young people. So when people are thinking of conferences where leaders of industry are sitting, when it comes to business, agriculture, education, health, they're not thinking of high schoolers. But so we have to knock on those doors and break those doors down, which is a lot of work, but it is work that we must do. We also focus a lot on setting up industries that will be sustainable, so that in the next few years we hope to be the ones giving our own people grants and giving them opportunities. So we have, even though it's run by young people, we have a restaurant, we have a bakery, we have a farm, we have a vocational training center that does sewing, embroidery, baking, shoemaking, purse
Let me
making.
do that right.
We have an art gallery, we have a recording studio, we have a media house. We're in the place of building a TV station now and a clinic. And at the clinic, 5 of our students who have graduated as doctors will come back and run it. And so the idea is really, how are we going to show people, again, that this investment can self-sustain, and that the dignity of work and the dignity of developing your own people is possible, even if you start from sitting under the trees without a classroom. So it's a labor of love. It's every day, morning through evening. But we also have a volunteer program where if people are going to come to Africa, if they're going to come to the Gambia and serve with these young people, they actually pay for the experience. So it's a volunteerism program. So you come in, you live with us, you do what we do, you eat what we eat, you do the things that we do, you pay for the experience, so that when you leave and say, oh, I went to Africa and I worked there, you can actually say exactly what you did without having exploited the people, one. And 2, you're able to identify what it is you gain from us, because while you're with us, we do debriefing. So you don't take a single picture that does not pass our standard.
Oh.
So there are no pictures of kids with torn clothes and flies on their faces, because that's not how we see ourselves. If you're going to come and be part of the community, just like in any other culture, if you see snot on a child's nose, you clean it up. You don't take a picture of that. And we question where you come from and what you've learned from there, and what you're learning from us and what we're learning from you as well. So it's an all-inclusive, very challenging program that challenges us as much as it challenges others. And the biggest problem is fundraising for such a strong, independent program.
Okay, wow. So we will definitely, I will get some information from you on how, people are able to contribute to this program, which is absolutely phenomenal. I didn't know all of that went with the school. This is absolutely phenomenal. And for this to be a brainchild of just your mama, tomorrow's Mother's Day. Today we're recording the day before Mother's Day, and how appropriate, because your mama, whoa.
Yes.
And yes, there are so many things that, there's so much that women and girls and women have to contribute to the entire world, that are often denied or go unnoticed. And I think that this model just really needs to be repeated across the continent and across the globe. Speaking of global relations, what type of people are you seeing that come in to participate in the volunteerism program, and who take interest in this program?
Right. So first of all, not everybody that wants to donate can donate to us. And not everybody that wants to volunteer can come and volunteer. Because what we're primarily looking at is how you can see, when you look at these girls, you don't see girls of disadvantage. You see girls that are rich, right? Poverty and wealth and money and education are usually defined according to power and who's telling the story. But whenever you look at an African woman or an African girl, you know that they're some of the strongest, most hardworking people you'll ever meet, particularly because of the circumstances that they're in. So to look at them as victims and people you're coming to save already puts you at a disadvantage. So we usually look for open-minded people, and then two, we look for people who can speak from their passion, right? So our primary question is, what are you passionate about? Not what is your qualification in terms of what degrees you have gathered, that's fine as well, but primarily, who are you as a human being? And how do your passions and your interests fit the needs of the population you want to go and serve with? So you can be a doctor, but let's say maybe what we need is somebody that can do counseling through massage. And so everything else you might know might not be applicable during that summer of need for us. Because what we want you to do is come and we will teach you some Gambian massage techniques. And then you can use your health education to teach some Western massage techniques. And we can look at why are African babies or Gambian babies massaged from when they're babies. What are the health benefits of that? Or when a girl wants to have a difficult conversation with their mother, why would it help for them to massage their mother as they're having that conversation? And what are those points of humanity? And can you access that within yourself so that when you come to the culture, you can partner with a people who are connected to that inner spirit of theirs, right? So we work through all of that with our volunteer coordinators to look at what passion do you bring and how does it fit the needs. And secondly, long after you have left, how can we continue it? And so that's one qualification. Usually college students, people looking for internship opportunities, people who have some time and are ready to learn instead of just go and dump knowledge on people. those are the people. And then, of course, the technical areas, photography, media, computer skills, health, agriculture. You can also bring those to bear. But rest assured that you're going to be working with a Gambian in that field who understands the Gambian context and can lead the way, and you can follow and accompany from their leadership. Because long after you've gone home, they have to continue. So you will have a cultural partner within the culture that you will work with, and then when you leave, that young person will continue what you started. So those are the people. College students, it's all ages. It's really a mindset more than where they are in their life.
So I should be more pointed in this question, this part of the question. Are there more melanated people? Are there any American people? Are there European melanated diasporan, African diasporan people? Are there more European people who are represented in the volunteerism or the contribution to the school? The reason why I ask this is because if there is an absence of African people in the diaspora who are not contributing, then we need to reach out to them, or they need to know that this is available for them to participate.
Yes, so I think just numbers and population wise, there have been more Caucasians, less melanated people that have volunteered to come, and that comes from the schools that we have connections with in the US, in Europe, and so on. My husband is an African American, David, the co-founder of the program, and when we started, one of the goals in the paperwork is actually to work our way to having African American students, people of African American background, come back to Africa through this program. So during the setup of it, the idea has been that we build up enough that we can actually be able to reach out more, not just to a university, but specifically to specific people.
Specifically African diaspora.
African diaspora. So percentage-wise, I would say 70% of those who come and those who support have been Caucasian people, and maybe 30% would be diasporans. So that's just volunteers coming. But of course, 100% of the program is situated in the Gambia, in West Africa. So both beneficiaries and those who run it full time are African and Gambian.
Okay. Well, that's. Do you see contributions and participation from people around the continent, from diasporans around the continent as well, other countries on the continent?
That's a good question. Mostly Gambia, Senegal, Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Nigeria. Yeah. So from Morocco, that side, or from Ethiopia, that side, Uganda, Kenya, that side, those are further away from us. And Southern Africa, I don't think we've ever had anyone actually from Southern Africa, so mostly West Africa.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your public speaking. So it's funny, she's blushing when I ask about public speaking. Making a sense. So how did you? So you do public speaking by way of invitation only?
Yes.
Is that how it happened?
So part of my work has always been centered around young people and activism. I talked about female circumcision. So years ago, I was part of a group of students in the Gambia that did interviews with Alice Walker of Color Purple in her book Warrior Marks, and it was about female circumcision and how it affects people in my culture and so on. And then I was also part of the first group of Gambians that did peer health education, where in cultures that didn't talk about sexuality, you would have young people go into the classroom and talk to their peers about protection, prevention, HIV, AIDS, and so on. So when I went to Kentucky to school, by the time I did that, I had been doing public speaking. I was the first female president of the Gambia Students' Union, the national union.
Wow.
And I was a high schooler at the time.
Wow.
So again, it was like a very young girl in a very male-dominated area. So by the time I went to college in Kentucky, I'd already been doing a lot of public speaking. And so I did, people against chemical weapon incineration. If you look at incineration, in the US especially, most of the incinerators are in underserved communities, especially brown communities. So I did some activism on that.
Talk about incineration just a little bit. What is that?
So when there are chemicals that you need to get rid of, but then you don't want to pollute the air or the water in affluent communities or in communities that might actually protest, where do you do it? In secret or quietly? And so looking at whether it's medical waste, whether it's weaponry, whatever, you need to, if you feel like you need to burn it, bury it, hide it, whatever, you usually look at disadvantaged communities and try to do that there. So I think I've just, by nature of everything that I've been involved in, always been concerned about who doesn't have a voice and how do you empower young people to use their voices, not just for themselves, but for other people. So most of my speaking engagement has to do with gender, race, class, sexual orientation, religion, and talking about those difficult topics, but how to open them up so that the people whose voices are usually being snuffed out can actually come to the fore and disagree in peaceful ways.
Wow, that is, wow. Okay, so finally, you are a poet, which I have discovered today, and most people who know about Nadira, I am a poet also. So, hey, fellow poetess. So, have you always written poetry?
I've always written poetry. I've always been a reader, and I've always been interested in, again, reflecting those voices. So I did some poetry in high school, but for example, I grew up in a Muslim family. I'm a Baha'i, but I grew up in a Muslim family, and I went to Christian schools, which is not unusual for Gambians. A lot of Gambian children have come from Muslim families, go to Christian schools. But when I was in high school, for example, Muslim young women did not go to the graveside when there was a funeral for a Christian friend. So like one of my first poems was called Internment, and it was about that experience of rebelling, going to a graveside and watching my first burial, what that felt like, so those visceral reactions. And then I went on to write poetry just about gender. And then went on to write poetry about when you come into a culture that is very, very tourist focused, what do you see as opposed to the person who lives in that culture, what do they see? So when you look at me, you come into Africa, for example, into the Gambia, and you're like, oh, I went into this house and there was a dirt floor. And I live in that house. What I'm looking at maybe is that even though it's a dirt floor, it's the cleanest floor you've ever seen, right? And so looking at those perspectives, or looking at Africa and saying, okay, what have you been taught about infrastructure? And so if you are thinking about whether I live in a hut or not, what do you think about all of the development infrastructurally in Africa? And what occupied your time so that you didn't even learn about that? So how much shopping did you have to do? How much TV did you have to watch to numb yourself from learning about me, even though I know so much more about you? So that's where my poetry usually focuses on. But then when I went to college, part of how I paid for my master's was I taught English expository writing, gender, race, And one of the things I always wanted to talk about was the connection between music and poetry. So a lot of the time when you talk about poetry, people are like, oh, it's for nerds or it's for hippies. But then if you look at the music that they love, you let them listen to it and you look at it verse by verse. It's very easy to change verse to stanza and to help people understand that they're immersed in poetry if they're immersed in music.
Yes,
right?
already.
So the connection between music and poetry. So those are my interests in terms of. So I will take a Leanne Womack song, like I Hope You Dance, and look at all the metaphors about dance. Is she really talking about dancing or embracing life? And then look at a song by Tupac and then compare the two. And I think in doing that, it forces people to think about the human condition as having more in common than different.
Wow, that's amazing. And I do understand you did say that you have a writing project that you are working on. And so I hope that in the very near future we hear about this, because you are quite the phenomenal woman. And I want to thank you so much. We will now, there we go. Hi y'all, now we're here together, right? Thank you so much for joining me. This is, me kind of cutting my teeth solo in producing podcasts such as this. So I hope to have you as a guest again, where we're
this time
right
you'll
now
be in the Gambia.
Yes, I would love to. That is a plan. You know that my plan is to move back to Alkebulan, Africa. For those who don't know what Alkebulan is, Alkebulan is the original name for Africa. And yes, I would definitely. You have been telling me that I'm coming to the Gambia, so I know that it's definitely going to happen.
See the program.
And I can't wait. And I'm so happy to have heard your story, to be able to share it with the world. And I believe that, and we're definitely going to show and incorporate into this video information on how people can become more involved, how we can have more African diasporans involved, because it's very important for us to give back to the roots.
And when you get to the continent, you know that no matter where you have lived as a diasporan, when you get to the continent, you feel a homecoming. Whether you end up living there or not, you still feel a homecoming. And that goes for everybody around the world. Life started in Africa. So for people who are really in tune, no matter what the color of their skin, home is Africa. But particularly for the ones that have been removed forcibly, you should come home, because when you come, no matter what the difficulties, your spirit will find its way.
All right, so thank you so much for joining me. That will close this interview. And again, like I said at the end of the interview, I will have some different information about the school, maybe some video.
We have a lot of
I can connect so that you all can share in the information. Also, I would very much like for everyone to get involved in communicating, asking questions. I have a direct connection with this lady, whether or not she's here or in the Gambia. So if you have any questions, I would love to get those questions answered for you, how you can participate. If you are allowed to participate, remember, okay? Because, and I love that about this program, that you just don't say, oh, everybody's just walking in the door, because you cannot let everyone into your home. That's right. So, thank you very much. This has been another episode of Chat2Me. Thank you. Keep it a bean, a buck, and 100 in this. Peace. For more information, contributions, and volunteerism about Starfish International in the Gambia, visit www.starfishinternational.org. Please share this video so that the information about Mam Yassin Sarr and the work at the school spreads far and wide. To book Mam Yassin Sarr, email us at chat2me@gmail.com. Hit the subscribe button for more stories like this from Chat2Me. Your like matters, but your comments matter more, because dialogue is how the truth and precious information is shared globally. Let's change the world, one chat at a time. With love, Nadira Norjahan.